So the next talk and the final talk will be done by Stijn Hoppenbrouwers and Robert Holwerda about the Kennis Platform project.
Yes.
Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, Robert will install the machine, which also has a small live demo. Okay, so this talk is slightly out of scope for the strict subject of data sharing, but since we're part of the demand project, we thought we might as well do that. Actually, you could say it has more to do with knowledge sharing than data sharing. It's really basically a look under the hood of the demand project or program, if you like. And the very simple connection is this. What we promised when we started the project was that we would work on a toolbox for data sharing, and also data quality, covering quite a few aspects. This toolbox obviously raises the question, what does it look like? What is this toolbox? Well, a tool in this case is anything that helps with a certain problem. So, for example, getting your data semantics or your data governance in order, it requires tools. For example, in governance and management, a data catalog is mentioned. That's a typical tool. We don't actually invent that or even make that in the demand project. It's also like a guide. So the toolbox is really like almost a handbook, a guide for getting the right tools, and so therefore it's a lot of content. So we immediately started thinking about how to shape this, and very quickly we started to take up the idea of doing that through a knowledge platform. So that's typically internet based, and obviously also publicly accessible at some point. And then we overdid it a bit on the ambition, and that's why we're still working on the knowledge platform. But now basically it's emerging, and we can't wait to actually start putting the toolbox, which has like a few dozen tools in it that we can think of, and to actually start shaping it. So we're talking about that a bit. I'm trying to sort of combine it. Yes. Okay, so it's a bit of an in-crowd talk, but hey, we're talking to the demand community right now, so let's go. A bit more than a year ago, I presented this, also on a community event, and it was still very nondescript, so we don't even try to read this, but it's really just a beginnings of a structure. And I had the idea that the work groups of demand would actually be able to cough this up, to just say, okay, you go out and you answer these questions. And that was quite naive of me, because first of all, these people don't have the time for that, but also they didn't know where to begin. So I really went like, oh, how could I be so naive? And then I started to think about, yes, something like a toolbox for doing this particular idea. Toolboxes are just, it's a way that people like to talk about a set of things you can do to help you out for just about anything. Yep. No, one first, actually, yeah. So the ways of helping out in otherwise toolbox, really in terms of a platform, but yes. Also, you started to think about what are the key concepts for representing this, and after some searching around and thinking, I ended up with the core of this, which is problems and solutions for problems. So let's say that what I call a tool is also a solution for a problem. And obviously, this is very, there's millions and billions of problems and solutions around, so it's always a matter of really finding the right ones and describing them correctly. So this is what came out first, which is basically a problem solution modeling language, which is very simple, had a bit of semantics underneath, but it's just another very small ontology. Basically, it's a very small ontology for problems and solutions that I wanted to work with. Okay, thanks. So this is not the whole structure, this is really the hardcore of the structure. First of all, we have problems, yep. We have solutions, and we have Oh yeah, so solutions and tools, let's call them synonyms for now, okay? And then we have this problem solution link. Now, if in other areas, like for example design patterns, you see exactly the same thing. You have problems, solutions, links between them, so there's pairs. It's just that design patterns are much more elaborately described. So basically, if you have a problem solution pair, you also have a potential design pattern. Yeah? And then you have the higher level, lower level, typical thing. Yeah, do the other one as well. If you have a solution, then on a different level, you can break up the solution in more problems on sometimes a lower level of operations. And then again, you have links. So you can actually build long chains from high level problems all the way down to how you try to solve them in a very specific situation. So it's good old abstraction, really. Okay? Then you also observe, if you start working with this, that very often you have like clouds of problems that are related, even without solutions in between. And the same thing for solutions. You know, you also have groups of solutions, and then you have all sorts of combinations. So this is quite liberal in the sense, like modeling. Speaking about modeling, this has a very lenient syntax and even semantics. So it's really just a drawing standard. Okay. Yeah, and then the basic attributes for this is obviously you want names for the problems. So this is type level. You want that's two things we immediately started working on: is problem stories and solution stories. Yes, think of user stories and requirements engineering. So they are short but sweet phrases or sentences describing problems and solutions in a transferable way, in a quite a generic way, very often, including, for example, saying, as a user or as an engineer, I want blah 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 blah. So it's very short descriptions. Yes, and then yeah, and then also we want to include URLs, basically pointers to all sorts of sources. One of this is to the website of demand that also contains a wiki where we want to put the content, but also basically any other source out there you want to refer to, because again we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If we know a nice tool or maybe a bunch of them, we just want to point to them. We just want to guide people to the right information. So there's some selection and etc. editing involved. Yes, please. So, one of my hobby horses is that if you have a model, in most of the socio-technical worlds that we work in, you also have a conversation that leads to the model. There's always this link between, on the one hand, conversations going on between, well, any kind of stakeholders and experts, and on the other hand, you have the model. So creating a model is a conversation. That also means that very often, of course, you see that models are made in sessions if they're collaborative, and this happens, for example, with ontologies, etc. So we're familiar with that. On top of the language, we had a very simple script that said, okay, this is a nice setup for sessions of about 1 hour in which you can create these models, with a handful of experts. And we actually also did that. So this is not rocket science at all, but you do need it if you want to get things going, because just giving them the language is not enough. You have to give them a setting. So it's which questions to ask, how to do this. Okay. Sorry, that was not just the first one. Just go back. Yeah. I'll show you a few examples of this. Based on this, we can actually create knowledge graphs. That's just a different representation with the same concepts. And the whole idea then is, and now it becomes more to the core of things. We have this wiki, which is a good way of creating content, hypertext style. We also have a knowledge graph, and the whole idea is that you can match them. This is not a new idea, done that ages ago with Wikipedia. But it works fine, and then you can look at the knowledge graph as like an index, the main core, conceptual core of what's going on, but there's a mirroring of that in the wiki, in that the main concepts are also there, also the links between them, etc. It's a fairly well-known concept, but we try to really go for it. Yeah. So, you can't read this yet. This is a data spaces session we did with Peter from the Demand project. And it basically just gives an initial mapping of problems and fitting solutions for the area of data spaces. Yep. And this is just a little bit of that. So never mind the contents, but you can actually see data sovereignty there, you can see federated there, as that's no coincidence, of course, semantic standards, etc. So this is what an actual little POV model looks like. Yep. And then also when we did about 10 of those, all related subjects from the Demand program, I put quite a few of them together in one big Miro board. This is just my little hobby, right? I wouldn't want to have anyone confronted with this. Trying to sort of organize it a bit better and try and come up with main concepts. So this is my little hobby horse. But from that we can derive a knowledge graph. Just a basic one, and actually I created it in actual code, but we want an editor. And this is where we get closer to what Robert is here for, which is the implementation. Yes, the next. So the wiki, the wiki side of things, basically hypertext as usual. Some people can edit, some others can just access it. And this one-on-one link, this mirror between the wiki and the knowledge graph. So the idea is that you can actually add maybe a few things, maybe a new tool in the knowledge graph, and then immediately, automatically, the wiki produces a new template page that you can then fill in. So the concept is really simple, and that's exactly what it should be, because this should be useful for people who are not really technical experts, but are domain experts and can create the content, whatever it is about. Yes, please. So just a few pictures. This is the actual Demand website with work groups. If you go to the wiki bit, it's still like a toy stadium, but you can click on data semantics, yep, and then you get this, and you can actually see one tool and one problem only, and they are combined in the wiki as a set. Yes, please. And then you get something like this. This is just an example text, but it's on the spot, so it obviously deals with some of the stuff that, well, we just heard about as well. Right, so it's in that domain. Okay, that's it. We're almost, so this was a nice idea, but then I basically went to Robert and Wouter, who's also here. Is he still here? Yeah. And they say, okay, let's build it. And then 1 year on, because they have many other things to do in their life than just work for this project, we get to the point where I can now ask Robert to do the demonstration. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Give me a few seconds to get the thing going. Here we are. Which one shall we do? We'll take this one, the first. Oh, sorry. Don't know why that happened. Still don't know why this keeps happening. So, if we want people to be able to create knowledge graphs, and in our mind these knowledge graphs ought to be a collaborative effort between people in work groups or research groups or whatever. This could be one of those knowledge graphs. In this case, this is not yet aimed at the ontology or the data schema, knowledge schema that Demand is working towards. I tend to choose other domains for demonstration purposes in order to keep the demonstration focused on the software I'm demonstrating, instead of getting in discussions about the example data that I've used. I'm not expecting anyone to get into a discussion about Aria Chen, because Aria Chen is a fully fictional pop star, and all these nodes in this graph represent musical concepts. Pop stars, songs, genres. This is probably an album or a band or whatever. And this is the graph view. And in this graph view you can see that while most of these nodes have a formal font, there are a few whose font is more of a handwritten style, a bit of a concept. Those are the nodes that are present in the knowledge base, but they aren't completed yet. So the editor is going to maintain a status for each node, whether it's complete or not. Let's have a look at, for example, a stellar drift. If I click on stellar drift, then the wiki page for stellar drift opens up. And this isn't finished yet. So there's at this point I can't yet start editing the text, nor can I add new nodes to the graph. That's not where we are in the development. But stellar drift apparently is an album. Oh, it's a band. Okay. This is all fictional. I had a large language model generate all this stuff for me, given a schema that I specified. In real life, the idea is to have this editor, this wiki graph integrated editor thingy, to have it hook up to a knowledge base, to a graph database containing a knowledge graph, read the actual data schema from the database, and offer that those entities and relationships and properties defined in that schema in this editor. So let's pretend that we have now connected this editor to a knowledge graph about music. And Stellar Drift is apparently a band. And you see that we're still in this handwritten font. I did my best to try to find a font that looks handwritten but not silly. I don't know if I succeeded there. It should be a bit more readable than Comic Sans. And the reason why Stellar Drift isn't considered complete yet, even though it has a rather interesting wiki text. The wiki text contains hyperlinks which relate to the relations in the graph. So each of these links is an actual edge in the graph. But besides the wiki page, we want the knowledge graph to also be contains extra properties for every concept or entity in the graph, which is in this property column here to the left. And there are some of those properties are required with the red star, and the formed year here is empty still, even though it's required. And that's what makes Stellar Drift an uncompleted thing. And the effect of Stellar Drift being incomplete is that this node doesn't get published to the public version of the wiki. So authors are creating the wiki and the graph in concert together, and they can publish the thing, and when they press a publish button that we haven't built in yet, all those relations and nodes that are considered complete will get published to an actual wiki that the entire world can visit. That's the basic idea. And Stellar Drift is not going to be part of that wiki yet, because we didn't fill out one of the required metadata fields. When was the band Stellar Drift formed? Well,
1970 was a particularly good year.
1970, okay. And by entering a value in this field, the thing becomes complete, and you'll notice the font change. I'm a big fan of fonts. And now this thing is complete, and the fonts are a bit more formal. We still have some extra options that we can, extra metadata fields that we can fill out, but we don't need. Apparently, we don't have to do this. The wiki is navigable, so if I click on rock, we're moving to the rock node. From rock, I may be able to go to a band like Crimson Echo, and Crimson Echo has our favorite singer or pianist, Aria Chan, who plays the piano. Okay. Whether a node is incomplete is visible in the knowledge graph by looking at the font, but you'll have to start searching, and there's no guarantee that these graphs will remain this small. They're likely to grow bigger. So in order for teams to have some sense of what has been completed and what hasn't, everybody gets to see what's in the to-do list, and this is the to-do list, and apparently Nina Santos needs a birth year in order to become complete, and indeed this one has the red star for required field, but it isn't, so I think she was born in 1970, don't you think, Stijn?
Good year.
Yeah. Okay. So, in a month or two, perhaps, I could also demonstrate editing the thing, so adding graphs, adding lines in the graph, relationships, and see how that changes the wiki part of the same entity. One thing I'm working on at the moment is a foundation for the editing functionality, and that's collaborative editing, a bit like people know from Google Docs, where people can be in the same document at the same time and see one another's actions happening in real time. Miro, of course, is another example of an application that does this, and for technical reasons, that was a challenge to be solved first before, for example, the capability of creating better graph layouts or the actual capability of entering text, for example. So what's the collaborative, the state of collaboration at this point? Here I have two browsers next to one another. They represent different users. So let's say that the right one is Bob and the left one is Alice. They are working at the same time together in the same knowledge graph, and our friend Bob is going to drag this little node here. Hey, why aren't we? Oh, so he's going to drag Sophie Blake somewhere else, and watch what happens. In Alice's screen, she sees the update immediately. For me, as a developer, this is when I know that I've got the underlying technology for collaborative editing working. Another demo I'd like to show you, and that's the last thing I'm going to show you. We're zoomed in on Sophie Blake. Let's zoom in on Sophie Blake here too. Now I need to make this one a little bit bigger, because these fields are also collaboratively editable at this point. So switching back to Bob, who's now overlapping Alice, but that's just because I need to be able to show you that if I start editing Sophie's death year, which apparently is a prediction or a threat, we could delete it, and then Alice is seeing the same deletions. We could have Alice edited 1300, and then of course Bob will see the same 1300, but Bob's information is a little more precise, so it's 1301. And so this is the collaborative part, and next steps in the development of this thing is to get, now that we have the collaborative thing down, we want to hook this thing up to an actual database, an actual graph database. We're using TypeDB because TypeDB allows very, very rich physical data models, and we need to develop the technology to actually read the schema and convert the schema in a sense to these kinds of user interfaces. Secondly, we need to have our user experience designers go over all the intricacies of collaborative editing. For example, you saw me dragging one of those nodes, and while I was dragging, you didn't see the same node dragging in the other browser screen. Initially, I had it built like that, but then it would be possible for Alice to try to grab the same node that Bob is dragging, and what if they start dragging it different directions? Well, the underlying math is simply going to combine those drags and then have the node end up somewhere in the middle where nobody was dragging it. So from a usability perspective, it's probably better to find a different solution. That's what we need a lot of user testing for, I think. And of course, stealing ideas from applications like Miro.
Yeah, if it ain't nailed down, take it. Thank you, Robert. I'm still impressed. I can't wait to actually get my hands on this and start producing more content. So thanks for that. I hope we do okay for time.
Yeah, you did okay. Thank you.